Hello everybody and welcome back for some more Redstone fun. So my previous Elytra launcher seems to be very popular, and I thought I'd do a new tutorial on a second design I had actually come up with a while back. It uses the core functions of the first Elytra launcher and applies them a little differently. And here it is. This is the primary intercardinal direction launcher, which is just a fancy way of saying that it can be shot off in 4 directions. I like to call it the Elytra core. No overly complicated button, no hidden redstone. Nice and easy. Everything you need for the design is right here. 2 things to note. I suggest building this in a spawn hub area and somewhere up high. This seems like a good height to build at. So this is the Elytra launcher here, and there's different ways you can get shot off from it. The one that I like to use most, we'll choose this direction to shoot off from. You just kind of stand on the Elytra launcher and you start walking toward the direction you want to be shot from. As you can see, I'm kind of displaced by the cobblestone walls. I'm in the air. You just kind of keep walking forward until you're just right on the edge of the boats. Like so. Now, this is the hard part. All you have to do is walk forward and press space. Like so. You can really see we actually get a lot of height with this one. This matches my height for the old Elytra launcher, but allows you to fly in 4 different directions, which means it's quite an upgrade. Let's head on back. A little addition you can make to make it easier for you to get into the position you want to be in. These 2 blocks and either like a wither skull, a mob head, or even a player head. And we'll be shooting off in this direction here. So what you're going to want to do is holding shift, just start walking into the corner. Because you go up against the skull and the blocks, you actually won't fall off, or you won't walk off, I should say. And then when you're just up against the skull, like before, all you have to do is walk forward and press space. And as you saw, I was a little off with the timing there. The key to this device is the faster you can get into Elytra flying mode, the more height you'll get. So doing it again, also don't forget to look up, and off you go. As you can see, I was much quicker on the draw this time, and I got a lot more height. So let's head on back, and I'll show you a different way to shoot off from this launcher. Now, if you're having a little trouble getting to the position for the launcher to shoot you off in the floor or in the corner you want to go from, another way you can get shot off from this launcher, we'll use this corner this time, holding shift. Well, actually, I should note, when you hold shift and you walk into these things, they don't actually shoot you off, and you won't experience kinetic energy. So this is it's a little bit of a safer way to use this. So what you're going to want to do just before you tap it, that should be a good spot. Looking in the opposite direction, once again kind of just angling upward, all you're going to do is jump and walk backward. And surprisingly, we actually got a little bit more height doing that than with the other sides. I would say this is a much more server-friendly way to use the launcher rather than walking off and activating the Elytra. And this way you can it's a little safer, because if you miss, you'd actually just jump on top of the Elytra and you just try again. Now, none of these ways of launching off are 100% efficient. I wasn't really able to find a way to make it completely efficient, but enough about that. Let's head on over to a creative world. I can show you how it's built and how it works. The first thing you want to do is figure out where you're going to be building this launcher. So I've picked this spot here, and what you're going to do, including the floor that you'll be standing on, just go down 2 blocks. Next thing you want to figure out is which way a boat is dispensed upward into water. In this case, it's dispensed facing away the sun is setting. And I believe that's a constant, but I haven't actually checked. So next thing you're going to do is grab all the materials you'll be needing, like in this chest right here. And the first thing you're going to notice is that this design is built using cobblestone walls, which is very important. We'll get more into that after I build it. So what you're going to do is start off by building a dispenser facing upward for the boats. Then from where you figured out where the boat's going to be dispensed, put 1 obsidian block on the long side. Next you're going to do is surround it with 3 cobblestone fences, and then on top of the obsidian put your slime block. That's important for helping it get into the position so each corner has an equal amount of boats. And then put 1 cobblestone wall in front of it, which will be pushing it to place in just a second. Next thing you're going to want to do is set up your piston, like so. A regular piston, not sticky piston. And also get your lever and put that in place. So the next thing we're going to be doing is setting up where the boats are going to be. So you're going to want to put 2 blocks of water like that. Now if you use a single block of water and you put a block or a half slab above it, the boats will be dispensed on top of it. In case for this design, it's actually better to have it dispensed in the water and kept down with the iron trapdoor. So the next thing we're going to do is kind of set up where the boats are going to be put into the dispenser. Let me just clear out a bit of room here. Now, the design I demoed in the beginning and the one we'll be building here first uses a standard of 100 boats, which X mentioned in his fix for my other Elytra design, which I actually think is a good standard to go by. Next thing you're going to do is set up your clock so that it dispenses the boats into the water. Now, you can use any kind of clock really. In this case, we'll just use a simple comparator clock. Like so, you're going to put it just 3 blocks away and 3 blocks of redstone. Now in X's video, he actually just used the lever and he kept dispensing the boats like that. It's a little slow, so I'd rather use a clock. So that'll dispense it at a decent speed and it'll be good. So next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and fill up the boats into the chests here, and I'll get right back to you. As you can see, the boats are now being dispensed on the top of the water just under the iron trap door, even though the dispenser is down here. And you'll find that there's that little bit of clicking sound. That might be because the dispenser is being activated faster than a boat is being put into it, but it doesn't matter for this design. So once the clock is finished dispensing all of the boats, you can clean it up and get rid of the chests. And as you can see, all of the boats are still stacked on top of each other. Don't bump into it yet. That's another step. So what you're going to do now is you want to push the boats using the slime block and the fence post. So using your lever, very important, you activate it. Now the boats have been pushed forward. As you can see, it's kind of further inside that cobblestone wall rather than the back. Break your piston without deactivating it. This is important. If you deactivate it, it will pull the boats back and ruin the positioning. Next thing you're going to want to do, using the trick I showed you earlier, hold shift while walking up against the boats and get them to disperse. Doing so on the side that you actually push them toward with the slime block. So if I can hit it, holding shift that wasn't shut off, and as you can see now the boats have dispersed and each corner has relatively an equal amount of boats. Now this step is very important because if we didn't push the boats forward and you just bunched into them, you'll find that one of the corners, or rather the back side, has a lot less pushing power. Now this one side is a little bit jagged compared to the others, but in terms of push power and flight, it doesn't make a difference. Now we can begin cleaning up the design. Ideally you could actually remove all of the water, but I prefer to have that one block of water and just put another block below it. And you can clean up the fence posts, and there you have it. The design is done. It's ready to be used as it is, but if you're using the walking off method on the top, you might want to think about keeping that 2-block height and making your floor just a little bit lower. Personally, I don't actually need it. It still works when you walk into it, so I prefer to keep it kind of at that 1-block height. The last addition we'll be making with this design is that little addition I made in the corner to help you line up in spots. And on the long side of the boat, you're going to put your skull or player head. I like using this one because using the blocks or even just a player head, you can indicate what is actually in that direction, like a person's face. Now that we've built the Elytra launcher, let's talk a bit about how it works. So the main feature of this design is using the cobblestone wall. Now the reason those work rather than solid blocks is because with wooden fences, glass panes, cobblestone walls, their hitboxes are just small enough that the boats, when they're bumping up against each other, they have enough room to disperse but not go through the blocks. Now with cobblestone walls, since the hitbox is bigger than the other two, it allows the boats to disperse but still keeps them very confined and allows more power in the corners. Now I mentioned you can remove the water. You do this with a half slab and just kind of holding shift up against one of the walls, you place it and the boats kind of fall into place. Now, you can do this, it still pushes you, but personally I like having the water as a bit of a safety, and if you need to reset it, it at least makes it a little bit easier. Now, a key function with this one, I mentioned earlier it uses the 100 boat standard. This one can actually still work with just one single double chest, 53 boats, and still launch you at a decent height. So this one here is set up using 53 boats. And if we go into position and I can get the timing right, that's something you'll have to practice. Even I haven't perfected that yet. So just jumping into place, as you can see, I still get just above 100 blocks, and this is pretty much at the lowest point in the world. So if you build this in your spawn area just on top of one of your spawn buildings, preferably the tallest one to get the most height out of it, maximizing on only having 53 boats, allowing you to travel a couple hundred blocks for bases nearby. If you plan on traveling thousands of blocks, I suggest using the 100 boats, as well as possibly using the older design. Now let's take a look at how I've set up where the boats are. You'll notice that each of the corners has enough power to push you hundreds of blocks in the air. If you were to set it up the same way as I did for the other one, and you just kind of bumped into it and used it right away, you'll find that 2 of the back corners will be lacking in power. Now, the reason for this is because when you push it closer to the one cobblestone wall and then bunts back into it, it allows for the boats to go back towards the other side while still keeping a couple in the first spot. This way, each of the corners are more evened out. Alright, so popping back here in the survival world, I'll kind of show you guys how it works using 53 boats rather than 100 boats and building it in a very key location. So just get back into the position, get ready to launch, and all you have to do is jump, and off we go. So we're still climbing quite a bit of blocks. We didn't get as high as the other time, it was actually cut rather in half, but half the amount of boats used, half the flight distance, you get the idea of how it works. But since we built it in such a key location, we can still fly hundreds of blocks in different directions. We can get to a whole bunch of bases that might be nearby, so the key for this design is all about location, location, location. Where you might not get as much height with it, it makes it up with versatility, as well as allowing for you to at least have less lag on a server this way. And you don't have to build as many launchers in different directions, because with this one, you can fly in 4 different directions. It's a nice design to have. So let's head on back up. One more thing I should point out before we call it an end. This design is very good for multiplayer servers. With 53 boats, there's less lag. I find it to be just as usable. For single player worlds, I would definitely hold off on using the 100 boats. I found that when you load it sometimes, and this is only in single player worlds, the boats can keep colliding and phase through the blocks when you're logging in. It doesn't happen that often, but it definitely happens when you have 100 boats. It doesn't break it completely, it just shaves a couple boats off. As you saw, it's still usable with 53. Now I want to say special thank you again to GT Experience. Him and myself have been kind of playing around with this to find new tricks to make the launchers better. And also I'll be leaving links to his channel and my previous Elytra launcher, as well as the fix that Exuma came up with for my other Elytra launcher to make it as efficient as it can be. If you do like my design, I hope you do subscribe and leave a like, and if you want to use it in a tutorial, just make sure you give credit. Anyway, see you next time.